We're here on the Moonlight podcast program. I am Dom Dorman.
I'm Ryan Havers.
And we're here on a rainy and cold night here in the Northeast. Very cozy. Ryan's got some coffee, I believe.
No, I have water.
All right. It is late for coffee.
Oh, yeah. Can't do that now.
I have some tea. I have some peach tea. It's very, very delicious.
Yeah.
We are here on the program. This is the place where we talk about creative people working and working people being creative. Tonight, I should say, we're used to doing this kind of during the day. This is a night version. Very, very exciting, special program tonight. We have writer, director, actress, and filmmaker Laura Sweeney, who is a very longtime friend of mine. I don't want to say old friend because that makes Laura sound old. But Laura and I have been friends for a long time.
It makes you sound old too.
I know. I am. Well, that's the problem, though, is that if Laura and I, let's say Laura and I hypothetically went to high school together, that would make us the same age.
Old is a state of mind, man.
Ryan, it's been a while since we caught up. How is life treating you these days?
Life's all right. I went skiing. I had a little bit of an accident.
Why are you skiing? You're too old to ski.
Yeah, I know. I hyperextended my arm. I'm like a newborn fawn on skis. It was my fourth time skiing. My family skis. My wife and my kids ski. And so they're like, you got to go. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I hurt my shoulder. And it's much better. It was a few weeks ago, but I'm on the mend. So.
I got one for you. I took my son sledding a couple weeks ago, and I did something to my knee that I can't describe, but it is incredibly swollen. Oh, and I can still walk on it. But something's definitely not right.
Did you ice it?
So I have not yet. I should do that. Maybe I'll do that tonight. You're not my doctor, you know.
I play one on a podcast though. You should definitely ice it.
I have to go see my orthopedist. It's not something's definitely broken.
Oh, you have an orthopedist.
I do. Well, I hurt my other knee a couple of times.
What are you, rich?
Times. No, I just break my knees all the time. And it's unfortunate because I live in not a very large house, but a tall house. So there's lots of stairs, which are fun to negotiate when you're injured.
Yeah.
But no, it's been a good couple of weeks. I've been listening to a lot of really fun music. And I've been watching a lot of sports. I'm a big NFL fan, so that the playoffs have been going on. It's very exciting to me. I don't have a good team. I'm a Giants fan. I don't have a good team, so I take pleasure in the demise of the Giants' enemies. So when teams like the Dallas Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles lose, it brings me almost as much joy as if the Giants had actually won. Which is it's probably a problem. I mean, that's not a healthy way to live your life, but I think it's part of being an NFL fan. You know what I don't like? There's people who are like, oh, can't you just root, like you want somebody why do you have to root against? Or people who say like, oh, yeah, you're a Yankees fan. Like, can't you just root for the Mets too? And it's like, you know what? Pick a side. Like, stop with all this ambivalence where it's like, oh, can't we just watch the game and it doesn't really matter. I don't like any of that. It really, and I meet a lot of people who are like that, where it's like, oh, why do you hate the Jets?
I hate that too.
And I'm like, because be a fan of something.
As you know, I'm a huge sports fan. I love all the balls: football, baseball,
skee ball,
basketball.
You like skiing?
And I gamble a lot. I bet a lot of money on these games because I'm really good at stats.
I don't do that.
And figuring out who's going to win.
I have friends who bet like $3 or $4 on like very odd pieces of the game
Yeah.
where it's like, this is going to happen in this moment. And like in the fourth quarter, somebody's going to like get injured or something. And they bet like, $3 or $4 on these events.
They're going to throw an octopus out on the ice.
Yes. That happens.
I know.
Or fish sticks.
The only reason I know that is from Strange Brew, the Bob and Doug McKenzie movie.
That's right. They played hockey in that.
Yeah.
And then someone stole their clothes.
Somebody horked their clothes.
Somebody horked our clothes. So the Sunlight Moonlight podcast here with our guest, Laura Sweeney. I do want to get into it with Laura, and we'll bring Laura on in just a moment. We put together some information because I want you to understand Laura's wearing many hats. And I've seen a lot of her work as both a director and actress and filmmaker, writer. And I think it's really fantastic what she's been doing. She's been doing it for years. And so, as I mentioned, screenwriter, director, actress, her scripts have been official selections at the Vail Film Festival, Nantucket Film Festival, Holly Shorts, Screencraft Script Fund, Filmatic, Toronto International Women's Film Festival, and Cascadia International Women's Film Festival. Her self-produced pilot, Mommy Mafia, which is extremely funny, won Best Comedic Pilot at Manhattan Film Festival and was a finalist at Chicago Amarcord Arthouse Television Awards. She also co-wrote the short film Solstice, selected for Genre Lab at Pinewood Studios, and she wrote a short film adaptation of John Milton's Paradise Lost, which I can't wait to talk to her about, now distributed by PBS. So her short film Across won Best Historical Drama at Manhattan Film Festival, and she recently directed a short, Tina, by Sherry Davenport, which is currently in film festivals, and it's very, very touching and very warm. She's currently writing a dark comedy feature called Negotiable, based on her own adventures in the real estate industry that she plans to direct this year. And she's also co-leader of Film Shop South Brooklyn chapter and has taught screenwriting for Writers Boot Camp and Open Screenplay. And I mean, if you just put all that together as a working mom as well, I mean, this is really, it's incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
And she came out of Georgetown University, and she also studied acting. As if that weren't enough, she also studied acting with the Moscow Art Theater, which I really want to hear about too. So, without further ado, Ryan, can we bring Laura out? Can we start talking to this?
Let's start. Yeah. Let me see.
This Renaissance woman.
Laura, here, let me get rid of this.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, guys. How you doing tonight? Thanks for having me.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Oh my God. This is awesome.
What a setup.
Yeah.
God, I feel like such a slouch.
Well, oh.
All of the film festivals and that has to be, submitting your work to those film festivals has to be an incredibly arduous process.
It's a mixed bag. So submitting it, you have to write the film and then make the film and then show the film to people, and definitely getting into festivals and all the submissions, the background task. It can be time consuming, but usually at that point, you're so psyched that the film is done. You can't wait to share it with people and get it out there. It's also pretty exciting. So, yeah.
Do you find that, because in my musical experience, I always had such a difficulty with that second part, which was like, the first part is like, the fun part and the part that comes like pouring out of you, right? There's like, you come up with an idea and then you hone it, and then you get it to where you want it to be. And then you actually can, put technology behind it and film the film, right? And you're working with talented actors and you're feeding off their energy, and then you're editing the film, you're doing music, you're finalizing everything.
Yeah.
And then I would always find that like I just wanted to stop there. And like the second part of like, let me get this in front of people and let me try and get shows and let me
The
try and get
advertising, the marketing.
it just, I
getting
would
it out
always like
there.
fizzle out there.
Yeah.
Like how
Yeah,
do you,
gotta
how do
bring
you
the mojo.
maintain, I mean, how do you maintain momentum from like writing something through the execution and then like all of that other follow-up? Is that like,
Yeah, that's a great question, because you can kind of burn out by the time you finish the thing. You're just like, oh my gosh, I'm done. But I guess, I think with films, you're often crowdfunding on some level, or you have several people involved who've gotten the project off the ground to begin with. So I found myself in those moments not alone with, like, now let's get it out there. I have someone being like, hey, when is it going to be done to get it out there? So it's not just me kind of pulling it along. And in fact, I usually try to do some sort of crowdfunding or something like that, even when maybe it's not as necessary, because that's sort of when you start building your audience. Like before you even make the film, you're building a community around the project. So you have this kind of village of people who can't wait for this thing to get done. And often those are the people who kind of are like, hey, are you done with that yet? I can't wait to see it. And then you're like, oh man, we really got to finish the thing and get it out to people. They want to see it, So I think, surrounding myself with people who make sure I keep going has definitely been important to every project. But every project's different too. Some projects come along and there's just all this energy behind it. People can't wait to get it done. Others come and it's like all this enthusiasm at the beginning. Then everyone like disappears and you're alone with the thing and you don't have the money and you just have to find a way. So each project, I always think, kind of comes with its own life force.
So you just made me think of something. As a musician, I have I have so much unfinished stuff, and it's sort of like you go through the archives, right? And you're like, okay, that one's hitting now. I connect with that one more. So, you get excited about it. Is it the same thing with film?
Oh, yeah, wow. I think I have a lot of scripts that are, they say like scripts are never completed. They're just stopped. Like at some point you're like, because I guess what's a little different between like writing music, well, I guess it's similar. It's like it's a film, a screenplay is not the end thing. It's sort of a blueprint for the thing you're going to make in a way that like the book is the thing. So when you finish it, it's finished. With the screenplay, it's like now I've got to go raise an army and make the thing. So
wow.
I have unfinished scripts. Usually it's like spinning plates. I think I'm moving towards one project, but then someone out of the blue comes to me as like, hey, I found someone who wants to be in that. There's a path for that project. Like, can we do it now? And sometimes there's like a drop everything, focus on this one and see it through. But yeah, it can be frustrating because you get really like involved in the creative process of writing a script. With a feature film script, it's quite involved. You're working on like 120 page document. You think it's almost done, and then you get pulled to another project for 6 months, and then you've got to get back into it, So yeah, they are kind of like house cats, like you run into that script and be like, oh, I forgot about that project. I love that project. Why didn't that one happen?
It's so involved. I complain about having to write lyrics for a song. That's like a page.
Yeah.
Forget 150 pages. I mean, it's mind blowing to me. It's such a different animal,
Yes,
Well,
I know, yeah.
And you mentioned, Laura, crowdsourcing. So and that sort of made me think of something. Do you feel like, and this, I guess, is sort of a leading question, but
okay.
The advent of crowdsourcing, do you think it creates a sense of urgency or responsibility that could be absent if you just had like 10K sitting there to make a movie? Like because I know like I'm notorious for like starting songs and not finishing them. But let's say if I started crowdsourcing and say, hey, I need $1,200 to record the song.
Yeah.
And then people gave it to me.
You got to do it.
I feel like I would have to like
bring it,
finish.
Yeah. Otherwise you're kind of, it's like, it does create a sort of accountability. And also, I mean, I feel like with every project I do, because I have a lot of people asking me like, how do you get it done or whatever, young filmmakers who want to just like get their first project. They're waiting till they have the money. They're waiting till they have this. They're waiting till they have that. And I always say, and this might be a little crazy, I always just say, just start saying you're shooting it. Like the film is happening and we're shooting it at the end of March. And as soon as you say that, people think it's true. And then it becomes true, and then suddenly people are like, oh, wow, this person's really going to do it, and you put it out at the crowdfunders. I feel like are helpful because once again, you're committing to an audience.
Wow. It's totally, I mean, not totally, but it's mindset, right?
Yeah. I think
that's,
I'm going to steal that.
Yeah.
I'm totally stealing this idea that, and I'm not going to crowdfund my stuff, but I'm going to pretend that I am. Like I'm going to tell myself,
well,
you owe the song, finish the goddamn song because you owe it.
Yeah.
You promised it.
Right.
I like the idea of saying, you said like I'm going to shoot it. It's,
these are the shoot dates. I literally,
these are the shoot dates. Like it's scheduled.
3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Yeah.
Like, it might change, but those are our shoot dates.
And I think I really am. I'm a firm believer in if you think negatively, you manifest negative sort of results. If you think positively, you manifest positive results. So if you're saying that, if you're like, these are the shoot dates, then you're going to start doing the work involved to get to that point. So you're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Wow. Yeah. I've already learned so much. We've been talking, Laura Sweeney here on the Sunlight Moonlight podcast.
Laura gets it done, man.
For less than 15 minutes. And I feel like I've had an epiphany just as far as like accomplishing work. Laura, speaking about all the different facets, and we'll get into sort of the idea of the day job and motherhood and things like that. But if you look at everything, if you really zoom out and look at your body of work and look at your bio and look at how many hats that you can and do wear, what is like, could you pick a favorite, or do you love like all of your children equally in that sense?
Well, I feel like writing is something I can't live without. A little different than the others. It's sort of a survival mechanism in a way that the others are not. Like I wake up every day and I write. It's just sort of like my go-to. It's like, drinking water. But I started out as an actor. So I
remember.
Yeah. We've been on the stage together, right? Yeah. That's right. That was fun in St. Anthony's. So yeah. But I get like a hankering, for one or the other sometimes out of nowhere where I'm like, I just want to do a really good role in something or, but writing I'm always doing. And I guess what's happening now is that directing is so all encompassing that I feel like now that I'm tipping into directing more frequently, it just takes over everything. So it's like now that I'm directing more, it's like the opportunity to step away from that and just write or just act. It's just like, it's like you're all in when you're a director on the project. There's no escape until the thing is done. And I love that. But it's a little more all encompassing than just writing or acting. So I don't know if I have a favorite, they're all different. All of my children.
No, and it's really,
that's a good way to put it though.
I found that throughout my lifetime, there were things, the first things I remember doing was playing music live. And like, that was my drug, right? That was like, we had to play shows. I had to do solo stuff like that was, and then I sort of got into writing and recording. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I don't have to schlep my stuff, down the subway. And like, have two people show up and feel like shit about myself for weeks. And I could just, stay in this little cocoon here and write and record. And so I feel like as far as my creative journey goes, that it has changed over the years, like what I gravitate toward. And I've gone through all these different phases. And I think that, but what I notice about you is that, if I'm putting together a rough timeline, like you're kind of like, it's not like you've graduated to directing and you're not acting anymore. Like that's not true. Like you're still doing all of it from what I can tell. And I think that that's really interesting that you can maintain. It's not this sort of like, it's not your career evolution to go through these different roles that you're playing. It is part of your toolkit. And you have all of these things like really locked down, and you keep going back and doing similar processes because you're obviously good at it. And so it's a really cool thing to see.
Wow.
It does seem like a natural progression though. Like, you started out as an actor, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I have been writing pretty much nonstop since I was like a fourth grader. So definitely, I think it all started with writing. But then I wanted to be actor was the goal. I was like, I'm going to be an actor. And then coming out of college, did a lot of acting. And then actually becoming a parent, I was actually working a lot as an actor when I found out I was having my daughter. And that really turned me more into writing again. I was like, oh, this is just easier. Like I'm home more, it's easier to control my time. I can be writing more. And I got back to writing. Yeah, for sure. So.
And then the directing obviously came later. Do you
think that was no, I was always kind of directing things, in college and stuff. We'd have like a group project and we'd be in a circle and everybody would be like, well, Laura, what should we do? And I was like, hey, okay. So I think that, I directed, but I didn't. Directing, I feel like is the most mysterious of the three because when I do it, I'm like, am I doing something? Like, what am I doing? Like you're sort of at the center of everything so much and you're sort of just like getting other people to change things a little and this and that. Like writing is really clear to me what I'm doing. There's nothing there. And then I write words and then there's something there. Acting is clear. Someone hands me a script or a project and then I'm there being filmed. Directing, it's sort of like being a parent. You're just like this person who's kind of in charge of everything, kind of doesn't exactly know how it's going to turn out.
Under control, right?
Right. It's a little bit like you're going to be fine. Everything is fine. In the back of your head, you're like, oh my God, are they ever going to stop bleeding? Like I don't know if everything's going to be fine, but you make it seem like it is, and like there kind of is a plan. And I think they all feed into each other, though. Too. I think that being an actor for so long and working with so many different actors has really helped me work as a director because I think one of the keys with working with actors as a director is like every actor comes from a very different background. And when you're on a film set, you often have very little rehearsal or none. So day one, you're going to be shooting that scene like 20 minutes after those people step on set. None of them know each other. One of them is like some Shakespearean actor, the other one's a method actor. And I've found this quicker I can identify like how to communicate with that particular actor because it's so different, the better. Some actors need a lot of attention and just to know they're doing a good job. Other actors need to know exactly where the camera's going to be and how they should tilt their head. They're all work so differently. And I've often said like directing is sort of like speaking many different languages. You communicate with the each actor very differently usually. You communicate with the cinematographer in like a totally different language, the costumer, the sound person, everybody. You're kind of like, you're the person in the middle of the sandbox. Everybody's like throwing everything at you and you're just
the point person.
Yeah.
And you're kind of building the film in a sense, like you're directing the actors, right? And trying to get us, you kind of have the vision, right? So it's like you're trying to get a specific performance out of them So you got to kind of give them tweaks and make
roll
sure.
with it, and roll with it, because sometimes actors show up and they do something completely different than what you expected. And so a lot of it is very egoless of like, that was way better than the idea I had. Like, let's keep rolling the camera, you know?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you specifically to directing. I have a very pointed question, but before we do that, I'd like to,
Yes.
You have a couple of clips that you sent us, and I wanted to play one of them so that people, because look, when you meet somebody's cousin or something, and it's like, oh yeah, like I make short films, and it's like, okay, great, and then it's you can't, it can be easily dismissed where it's like, all right, this is a guy with an iPhone who thinks he makes movies or whatever. But your productions are so professional and they are so legitimate. And so what I'd like to do is, for those listening, you're going to hear some dialogue and maybe some music and background noise or whatever, but we have a video platform here, and I wanted to show a clip. Is there a specific clip I can queue up before I ask my next question? Like, if you have a favorite, or if there's something specific that you feel like really represents what's going on with you.
Okay. Maybe in a cross, I would say I would do something from that.
I have watched this when you made it.
That one was sort of the most ambitious because it's set in the 1940s, and we had a vintage car, and there was underwater cinematography, and basically every production.
Well, and like flashbacks, and there's a ghost.
And I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah, I thought it was going to be so simple, and then I was on set, and I was like, "What was I thinking? This is like overwhelming." I actually liked the flashback section, maybe right around there, before the water dunking part.
Yeah, it's and it's like, it's super creepy. I mean, I think it's meant to be creepy.
Yeah.
And I want to.
Yeah, there's like little mini horror movie in the middle of a historic drama. That's what I was going.
Yep.
For. Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening. You know what? I'm gonna do the nighttime scene.
Okay. Oh yeah, I love how that turned out too. Yeah, because we have the World War II.
Because this is really so. The setup is that we've got four. And will you allow me to do this? Can I?
If you like, or I can, whatever you want to do.
All right. So we've got four friends. There's two sisters and there's two friends.
Yes.
And this is in the late 40s, and this is after World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And three of the friends have lost husbands.
Yeah, they're widows, very young widows.
Right, like of soldiers.
23 years old, yeah.
Right, and the youngest sister is about to get married the next day, and they take her out the day before, sort of like a very small bachelorette celebration at the beach. And there's a realization that there was an event that was mysterious in the past, and it gets revealed what the event was, and it was a personal event. I don't want to spoil it, but and then one of the sister, who's the bride to be, runs off into the forest, and now the three friends are looking for the sister.
Ruby! Goodbye, Emmett.
There we go.
All right. Oh, I moved over there.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. There we go.
Whoa. Whew.
It's like studio in a box. But that, I mean, just the whole project.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me a little bit about, like, where did you get this? Like, how did you come up with this idea?
So this project Across, which it's set in the 1949. Well, a couple things. So I did really want to make something about the American war widows of World War II. It's a very untold story. You hear a lot about the war brides who came back. You hear a lot about the soldiers. There's so many World War II stories, but the women in the United States really held our country together. It was an enormous gift to the United States, and there's very few stories about them. So that was one thing. But the other true part of how this came was I was working with a cinematographer. It's just sort of a disappointing story of creative how
my favorite.
I was working with a cinematographer, and he said, I want to shoot something for my reel. Can you write me something that's 4 women in a car and there has to be a bridge? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And so I wrote this thing, and the script won a whole bunch of things. And I was like, wow, maybe we should make this. This is crazy to make a 1940s short film. Why? But, and then this film, it almost happened 2 separate times. And then it got delayed. And then it looked like it was really going to happen again. We got some funding, we got some interest, and we started putting it together. And then the pandemic hit, right as we were supposed to film it, but it was so perfect for the film. We ended up shooting it in 2021, right after everybody was starting to get vaccinated. Mm-hmm. That moment where everybody's like, the war is over, we can live again. So most of the people on this set, it was their first project back on set.
Wow.
So there was this kind of the war is over feeling already there. And in fact, people were socializing so much that it was okay, guys, we all haven't seen people in so long. Right. We got a lot to do. So we had to get to work. But it was shot mostly outside, which was perfect for that post-pandemic shoot.
Yeah.
And
also, the price is right.
Yeah. Yes.
I remember that from music videos where it was well, fuck it, let's just go outside.
Yeah. I mean, this location was beautiful. We shot in Glen Cove, Long Island.
I knew it was a North Shore beach. I could tell by the rocks.
Yes. And that was maybe the one production, I don't want to say error, but the thing I learned on this was I was it's just one location. But I forgot that it was this huge estate. I mean, it might as well have been 3 different locations. But it was all outside, which was how we were able to create the time period. It was really just having this beautiful car and the costumes and props. We didn't have to dress any rooms or anything like that.
And the makeup too. I mean, that was definitely definitive from what I know of that time period.
Yes.
And you had the dialogue you had a couple of little lines in there. There was little, 23 skidoo,
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Let's throw back some sassy suds.
Yeah. No, it was really, but those were really nice touches that to me lent to the authenticity. Again, not to, and certainly not to trivialize the medium of short film. Yeah. But there are, I think about everybody I knew in college who was I did a short film. And it's
the guy and a girl, and then they're on the bench. And then
right.
Yeah.
And then there's no ending. And then the kid gets up in the class and says, this is how it ends.
Yeah.
But we didn't get to shoot it. And
it was really unusual because it was so cinematic. It was just I call it my Lord of the Rings because, for an independent filmmaker, a short, it's rare that you get to have a 1940s car and all these departments asking you, which scarf to wear and getting all the actors in the same world and toughening up their performances a little bit because we, tend to be oh, I'm sad and let it show. And these 40s women are you got to bear up, It's a very different feel behind the whole thing. So it was really a wonderful group of people. And then we had a drone photographer, and it really had a lot of production elements. For me, it was
the aerial shot of the car on the sort of beachside road.
That was
just
cool.
It was so cool. And let me ask you, very pointed about directing though. Is it because I'm sure that different directors and a car commercial director is going to be different than sort of an indie film director, right? And so there's, different needs for different, I guess, different scripts and different projects. But do you ever feel like, you were describing it before about like sort of being in the middle of the sandbox and everybody's asking you stuff. Like, have you ever gotten to a point where you're sort of like, hey, I need you guys like to do your jobs? Like, why is everybody at like, I mean, I know it's part of your job
Tom Cruise sunset.
Yeah, well, but sort of like, in corporate life, right? To bring it back, and again, we're on the Sunlight Moonlight podcast. We're here with multi-talented filmmaker, writer, actress Laura Sweeney, and we're talking about creativity for work and work and creativity. And to that end, like I go back to my corporate days of like managing a multi-site team, where there were days where, I had everybody from senior directors all the way down to managers and supervisors. There were days where I was like, can't anybody just like do their, like, why do you need me for everything? Mm. And it's like, a lot of times it was an environment that I had created where you make people sort of reliant on you, or you don't give people the authority that they need to get things done. And so have you ever had moments like that where you're like, look, you're the actor, act. You're the cinematographer, shoot. You're the wardrobe person, dress the people. You're the makeup person, like make them look good. Like, have you ever been overwhelmed like that? Or is it more of like a, fluid, like you just go with it?
I mean, every project's different. I definitely have had moments where everyone's asking me something, there's no multitasking when you're directing. It's like one at a time. Let me talk to her and then I'll talk to you. Give me 2 minutes.
Right. Wow.
Just keeping your cool because everyone's looking to you for how to behave on set. But I think that this is sort of a non-answer, but it is my answer, is that I get pretty involved, not exactly a producer, but a little bit very early in the process in choosing the team that is going to be there.
Okay.
I've only had a couple instances when I'm not super involved with that, because, you're really choosing who to go into battle with, very early on. And I've had a few things where I've interviewed someone and I'm like, I just don't know about this person. And always that's the thing that goes wrong. So that's the person I have a hard time working with because I didn't listen to myself. And that ability to discern, like that gut instinct of like, this person is just not, there might not be a bad person or bad at what they're doing. That I'm just not feeling them for this project. They don't seem to get what this is going to be like and in the flow. And I don't want that person there. I've gotten better at listening to myself on that, as I have more experience in this kind of thing. Because I've learned the hard way. I always say I learn the same thing every time I direct, which is that I should have listened to myself more than I did after,
And do you feel like, you've been doing this, long enough where, you know the players, it's like, I don't know, it's like if you want to, as a musician, throw a gig together or something, like I know who I'm going to call to do it.
Yeah, you develop like a shorthand with certain people. Like right now, there are, 2 cinematographers who I work with frequently. And then, I always try to get one. If I can't, the other. They're good at different things. We know how to communicate with each other. We have a good time working together. So we just bring that on. It's always a little challenging when you have to work with someone you've never worked with before, and you have to kind of get to know them while you're getting the thing done. But exactly. You do get like a team of people behind you. I think the thing more answering your question still, Dom, that I've faced and like, I guess today and all the Oscar announcements about the lack of female director, blah, 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 is like, I have been brought onto a set as a director where no one is listening to me at all. And I have to prove that I'm the director. And so that happens, when it's just like a thing for hire.
Do you think that's directly attributed to like being a female thing?
It is. I feel like
it sucks.
I feel like I'm so lucky that I was so there's something in my personality where I was a little clueless about all that for like 10 years. And I'm kind of glad because I think if I had known, I might have given up. But I kind of like just let it go over my head. And by the time I realized it, I was just too far in. But I've learned a few tricks of how to deal with that when that happens as a director, because usually it's the cinematographer or somebody else who's the head of a department. And what I've learned is like whoever's, they're vetting you. I mean, people do this anyhow. Like, is this person really going to direct this thing? We're going to have to take it over, blah, blah, blah. And what I do is I'm like, well, I'm running a rehearsal with the actors. And they're like, no, we got to shoot something. And I just start. I ever choose whatever department I feel like I have an ally with. And I let them kind of know, like, I'm going to stand between you and the camera with the actors and run a rehearsal. And then they're like, all right, I guess they are going to direct it, So, but, you have to put up with some stuff.
Whatever you do, don't talk to Ryan's wife about any of this because her head will explode.
Oh, yeah.
No, but it's true.
No, I know.
It's true,
I don't mean to make light of it, but it is a shame. I think that I think the irony, especially of, Barbie.
Yeah.
The irony there is so palpable. It's like, how could you possibly really, really do this? Now, I will say this. I will say it's a crowded field. I'm not an apologist by any means, but it's a crowded field this year. And they did expand all the nominations years ago, right? It used to be a lot tighter.
Right.
And box office, as evidenced by things like, Avatar, box office does not always equal a creative triumph.
Yes.
Right. And so I think there's something to that. I think it's really unfortunate if you look at Greta Gerwig's body of work.
Phenomenal.
She's an exceptionally talented filmmaker.
And it's not the first time this has happened,
right,
where everybody gets nominated in the movie. I mean, that said, Jane Campion won for Best Director last year. It was grossly overshadowed by the Will Smith punching thing, Yeah, but it's like great female director, Jane Campion wins Best Director. I mean, that should have been the headline. So, I think that, Greta Gerwig is a great director and will continue to direct. I feel like I see progress in that people are even talking about the fact that it's upsetting. I mean, 5 years ago, this would have happened and nothing. So there's at least a noticing of that. But it's a tricky position to be in because, like we were talking about, when you walk on set, you want that world to be creative. You want people to feel safe. You want to be productive and get things done. So you can't like fly off the handle and scream at the cinematographer, So, it's a delicate balance. And that's my generation too. I feel like, I don't know, I shouldn't say too much, but like different generations of women, definitely being kind of like a 90s chick. I'm like, there's a diplomatic way we can handle this. And that's not, maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I try for.
Well, but Gen Xers, I mean, all of us here being Gen X or cusp of Gen X, some of us are older than others.
What is cusp of Gen X?
Well, Ryan's younger than me.
Oh,
I mean, not by much.
The truth comes out.
And he reminds me all the time.
And
like 6 months.
But the idea, I think, Laura, I think it's more of like, yes, I think
15 years.
There's
No, I'm kidding.
There's something about the Gen X mindset that can be a little aloof or sort of ambivalent, where it's kind of like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think that what you have is that, the generations after us, you ratchet up the sort of, there's lots of tantrums and there's public outcry and things like that.
It's a different world. I will say, when I started, screenwriting and this and that, when I would go to meetings and stuff, like, and meet other screenwriters and filmmakers, I didn't used to tell people that I was a mom because it was talk about it. And now it's totally different. It's totally different. So,
well, and now it's almost like it's a badge of accomplishment.
Yeah. I mean, that has changed tremendously.
Yes. And I think, we all have children here, and I think we see what our not only what our wives went through for the actual childbirth process, which is brutal.
That's a whole nother podcast.
But it's a whole nother podcast. But I did want to touch on that, and we're not really terribly constrained by time. If you have time,
Yeah,
we have time.
sure.
Because there's like a few other things I really wanted to get into, which is I wanted to talk about motherhood and how you do you feel like the experience of being a father, I'll preface this by saying being a father has changed me, and I have a son and a daughter, they're both very young, has changed me in ways I could not even predict or comprehend. And like I didn't know what I didn't know. Like I had no clue what I was in for in a very positive way. And how do you feel like being a mother changed you at all as an artist? Like, was there a version of you that existed that was different than the artist you are now?
Wow, that's a big question. Yes. I mean, I was always artisting. It wasn't like I didn't do anything and then I did once I became a mom. However, I think I got a lot more picky about the things I worked on. I cared more about like what I'm putting into the world. And also I think I began to feel braver because it was like, I'm going to show my kids, if in the very least my work inspires my children to go after what they're going to do, then, I've done something. When my daughter was a baby, and my daughter's now 18, so this is a long time ago.
Wow.
When my daughter was a baby, and I wanted to write, I had to pay a babysitter $15 an hour to go write, So like I was not procrastinating at that coffee shop. Like pages were getting written. I had 2 hours, $30,
Right.
So it was like costing me money to work on my artistic stuff. So the level of commitment definitely ratcheted up.
It probably made a world of difference though, in the sense of, because I know for me and my wife, and I think this happens with parents, is that especially in the beginning, you lose yourself, so I'm sure that like having those couple of hours to be able to dig in,
such an outlet, Yeah, and I remember I was writing these like really dark things, I don't know what that was about, but it was like the hormones clearing out. I wrote like a thing about a haunted burlesque club that was like a ghost story where like this burlesque dancer would peel her skin off. I mean, it was really dark. And I was like with this little baby during the day, So
is that the one on 34th? I think I've been to that one.
Yeah, right.
Oh, well, this was like set back in time. It's like old,
I always think of the Slipper Room. You guys remember the Slipper Room?
Yeah, I remember the Slipper Room. Yeah, for sure.
Lower East Side. That was a burlesque club.
Yeah. Maybe that script will get made. Now burlesque is like hot again. You never know.
Well, nothing goes with burlesque like children.
Yeah.
Nothing says being a mom.
I guess there was this sort of balancing of like, I need to write these dark things because like I'm expected to be this perfect mother the rest of the time, which is why I wrote Mommy Mafia. I see him on the screen now. That's there. But
yes.
I will say that was something I was taking a screenwriting course at the time at Writers Boot Camp. And I remember one of my teachers said something like, write what you know, write who you are. And I was like, who am I? What am I going to write? And it was like, I'm a mom. And then like, I had this idea for this show called Mommy Mafia, which is like everyone trusted me because I was a mom with this little baby in Brooklyn all the time, everywhere I went. They'd be like, can you watch my laptop? I'm going to do this. Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, why do they think I'm a good person just because I have a child?
Well, it's also giving, it's like the worst thing you could do to a mother because you're just giving her more responsibility.
Yeah.
More shit to do.
Watch shit for me. Yeah.
Right. You don't look very busy. Can I give you something to do?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Full on moron. But I had this thought, like, what if moms were to like, leverage that a little, trustworthy, sure. So I was like, what if moms they could get away with a lot. So that's how I came up with that project. So.
Well, and also, awesome. The quintessential stereotypical, stroller toting Park Slope Mom.
I lived
And
through that whole thing.
Yeah, and that is a culture unto itself.
Yeah, and
I remember going. What was that bar? It had an outdoor part. Was the Gate?
Oh yeah, the
in
Gate.
Park Slope. And I remember
Sixth Avenue there, Fifth Avenue.
I remember going there, but way before I was even engaged or married, let alone having kids. And I looked around and I was like, I'm not making this up. Everybody here either has a child or a dog.
Yeah.
And it was like you're in this like outdoor patio, and I was just surrounded. It was like boobs were out, like breastfeeding, and then people have feeding dog treats. And I was just like a guy with a beer, and I was like, wow, this is like, I don't understand this culture.
Yeah, Park Slope is its own world. And I definitely, like, when we lived there too, we were like, starving artists who had kids, who were kind of like had jobs, and we're trying, we didn't have like a brownstone or a nanny, or, we were really just like barely scraping by at that time. So, but one of the ideas in Mommy Mafia was like, some of these strollers are like $40,000. And people have it just like on the curb. And I'm thinking, I need a part-time job. How am I going to work? And then it's like, that stroller is $40,000.
Why are they so expensive?
Criminal Mind was like, just one stroller. Right. They could replace the stroller. Is it wrong? Anyhow, I never did any of it. But like, the criminal mind, the creative mind was turning.
So that's great, though.
That's fantastic.
Really I have another sort of mom project I made. I don't know if you ever saw this one. This was like smaller, but I did a web series called The Mothership.
No, I did not see
this. Was right after we moved to Long Island, and my kids were in that age where I was just like driving them to soccer. I was just like always in my car, like always. Mm. And I had this idea for this crazy character, like in between dropping her kids in places. What if she did like crazy things by herself? And so it's me. It's the one project where I'm doing everything. I shot it, I wrote it. I wear a crazy wig. She's like this crazy Minnesota. Speaking of,
I remember this. Now that you say the wig, I remember.
But yeah, she does like pole dancing in her car. She does like yoga. I mean, she's making pancakes. Like but it was such an outlet for me at the time, because I couldn't really be doing movies and stuff that much. My kids were in an age where I just was with them all the time. So I was able to make that, start to finish. So it's really
cool.
Yeah.
I think that that is the way to do it, is write what because you can get so deep into the nuance and the subtleties of it's a life, really, right? You're getting into the subtleties of your own life, and that being able to communicate that is it. I mean, I think it really comes across,
Yeah, for sure.
Well, there's also the vulnerability there of sharing, putting down on a piece of paper what it is that you think you do know. Mm-hmm. About how you go about your day, or even, the risk of being a female and writing down, saying, I'm going to write something funny, and this is going to make people laugh.
Yeah.
That's really hard, because you're not starting from the same, you're not playing on an even playing field.
Yeah.
And I think that to be able to do that, and to make, we were checking video before, and we were watching the trailer for Mommy Mafia, and we were both like laughing out loud. It was just completely ridiculous.
Mommy Mafia was so satisfying in that way, because we did some readings of that in places, and I could tell that some of the people who had to read it and stuff were like, oh, it's going to be this mommy thing, like whatever. But like there's all these mob guys in it and whatever. And you could just tell like that it brought the male audience in right off the bat. Like it's, so that one was very satisfying. Yeah.
Well, look, parents sort of behaving badly is something that is immediately, I can immediately identify with.
For sure.
Because I'm an older parent, right? I had my son, my first child, when I was 41, I think.
Yeah.
And so,
it's hard to not sleep when you're 41,
we're still doing
right?
diapers, dude. I'm like losing
my mind.
Imagine. But I think there is, and I remember my sister had children very young. She had children in her early 20s. And she was like very, very responsible, and like was not a risk taker. and did not, really sacrificed a lot of her time and her life experience to be with the children and to raise them correctly. And I think there's a difference in an older parent that is just you're just like that much more tired. You're that much more like zero tolerance for bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, I think it affects the children too. I think children of older parents are very different than children of younger parents. Just because of how and it's not like behaving, horribly or whatever, or being a bad parent, but the idea of a parent being sort of like, hey, you're competing with your child to live your life because you're so, when you're 41, you're so used to doing your shit.
Right. You're a little more set in your ways.
If you're early 20s, you're still kind of established. Like you're figuring yourself out.
Yeah.
You don't have, like you said, you're paying babysitters. You didn't have a nanny or whatever. And we had careers established so we could get more babysitters, or we could have a nanny or pay for daycare. Yeah. And so it's just an interesting how it affects all of that. I wanted to cover two other things before we head out. We are here on the Sunlight Moonlight podcast. We're having a fantastic dialogue here. You'll see what I did there? With Laura Sweeney, filmmaker and actor and writer. At the very end, Laura, we'll do a segment with you.
Okay.
Called Easy Uneasy.
Okay.
And so what happens in the segment is that Ryan, who is very nice and very sweet, will ask you an easy question.
Okay.
And then I will ask you a question that may make you uneasy.
Ooh, I love it. My father was a litigator, so
okay, all right,
that's
perfect.
Yeah,
that's perfect. But before we go, so Sunlight Moonlight podcast here, we talk about what creative people do for work and what working people do to be creative. And to that end, we've talked about motherhood. We've talked about your sort of evolution and your different talents and accomplishments. Let's talk about work for a little bit. How do you I know that some of this short films, there is a flexibility there. You're not on a 6-week shoot. You're not renting out all of these, different structures and different buildings and stuff. So you have an advantage there where you can probably do more in a shorter amount of time. But being in the real estate business, which requires an immense amount of flexibility, how do you sort of reconcile the things? Because you're committed to so many people in the filmmaking process. And then how do you reconcile bringing home some bacon while you're indulging yourself on that other side?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. When I figure it out, I will come back. No, I mean, it's a hot mess, I think is really the answer.
Okay, well, that's an answer though.
Yeah, it's ongoing. I mean, I will say it does somehow work out. It has worked out. I got my real estate license, I guess maybe going on 9 or 10 years ago when, to work in Brooklyn. I originally worked in Brooklyn as an agent and then moved it out here. And now I'm with Compass, which has been great. Funny enough, there's a lot of, what's the word? Overlap. I'm constantly trying to be like, I should get a job more in the media and let go of real estate and blah, 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 blah. And then at that moment, I'll be working with a buyer who happens to be on a television show, who puts me in touch with so-and-so. And it's like, did that really just happen? So a lot of things like that have come my way. I feel like I've been very lucky with the people I worked with in real estate that they really support my work and really enjoy hearing about it.
Yeah.
I'll have a screening in Manhattan and I will pack the house with 85 tipsy real estate agents. I mean, I bring an audience, I mean, that has been
great. You have a built-in following.
Yeah. But as far as balancing the time and the thing and the whatever, my experience has been when I'm busy making a film, I get busy with real estate. when I'm not doing anything, everything gets quiet. It's like one or the other.
That
Um,
always happens, doesn't it?
it always happens, somehow it keeps working out, the bills keep getting paid. I always say to people like, yeah, let me sell your house. They're like, no, but I love your movies. I just want to watch your movies. And I'm like, well, there's a direct relationship between, me listing your house and me making that movie.
Yeah.
Right? Like, let's do this,
Wow.
and then there is crossover in terms of like locations and things like that,
Yeah.
certainly the skills of being an agent and negotiating deals on things and getting things written down for locations, vendors, all kinds of things like that. I'm not afraid to do that because I spend a lot of my professional life on the phone working things out. There's very similar skills in a lot of ways. In real estate, you're bringing a team together to close the thing. Similar with the film. Yeah.
I like that.
What do you do when the creative reserves are low? You're just busy with life. You did say you have a daily writing practice.
Yeah, I meditate every morning. That's a big part of my morning, like 15 or 20 minutes. When the creative reserves are low, though, that's such a great question. I always try to go for at least like a couple hours. Sometimes it has to be shorter, like somewhere in nature, and just like everyone needs to leave me alone for a couple hours and refill the well. Because yeah, especially being a parent and everything, you get pretty burnt out. That always helps me. Yeah.
I always feel like there's probably more, but two schools of thought where it's like some people I think right when it hits, when it's hitting, and they have like this period of being prolific, and then that's over, and then they're okay with it, and they just live their life, and then it comes again. And then I think other people have sort of a daily, whether it's hitting or not, just to keep the muscle, flexed or whatever.
Yeah, I love just the exercise of writing and journaling as far as like getting projects done and being prolific on any level. For me, my experience is these projects are like, this is a little dramatic, but a little torturous. Like they just keep bothering me, turning up until they're done, to the extent that I'm like, okay, all I need is another creative idea. Like leave me alone until I finish these three. The ideas come quickly, bringing them into reality is exhausting.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, and I think it's like normal, especially for creative people, they just ideas come in, right? I mean, I get ideas all the time, but finishing it and making it a thing that's not in my head anymore.
Yeah. Committing to that one where you're like, that one keeps bothering me. Yeah, that's kind of what happened with that documentary. I was like, kept thinking about it. And now I'm making the movie.
When I sort of go dry, I go for like inspiration. Like I go to like some of my favorite records or some of my favorite lyrics or performances, and I kind of immerse myself. And even film too. Like I will go and like watch films that have these, like I'll watch Blade Runner, where the score was done by Vangelis, and I'm just like listening, and I'm like, God, this is like, so it's like he's from another planet. Yeah, and it's like getting that something that is so different and so outside of what I'm doing to try and bring it like out of me to be like, no, it doesn't. You're in your head. Like, listen to how wide the world is. You could be doing anything like this, or vision. People like Peter Gabriel, or like, people who are just sort of doing their own thing regardless of what people are expecting. And that always reminds me that like, I don't have to write for anything or anyone but myself. Yeah. And because I'm always trying to like, well, what if, people don't like that? And, if it's just acoustic guitar, like, is that kind of boring? And it's like, listen, man, like, it's Ryan, we talked about this all the time. Twyla Tharp had said a long time ago about sort of being creatively blocked. She said, it's all been done before, honey, get over yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like that idea. I mean, if somebody like her to say that, where it's like, listen, don't worry about coming up with an invention.
Yeah.
Just make your art.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that just the fact that we're all human beings, if you like what you're doing, chances are someone else is going to like it as well, somewhere in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Someone's going to connect with it.
I know, like I've taught screenwriting a lot, and always when I work with writers, I always say, like, write a really bad first draft. Like, don't get in that mind of later on you're going to need to edit it and make choices. But it's very hard to have both of those brains going at the same time. Like, you just got to let it be whatever it is, and then later on you can worry about what people are going to think or whatever, because you can stop that creative process from flowing.
Is that what you do with your daily writing? I wanted to ask that, actually.
No, my daily writing is like, I forgot to get the thing yesterday. You know, it's very much like just me sorting out my life on the page.
But it's sort of stream of consciousness, right?
It's sort of how I talk to myself, I guess, you know. Yeah. I want to say something else though about when you get stuck or need to refill the well, because what you brought up, Dom, about like going to a movie or like a different art form than your sort of like chosen now more important pressurized art form, you know, because now when I make a film, I'm sort of like mid-career. So like stuff is expected of me in a way that it wasn't when I was just being creative for fun. And even with
the heat is on.
Yeah, it's like there's a different level.
It's on the street.
Yeah, I love dancing is my outlet. And like, I love it because I'm never going to be a professional dancer, as many dance teachers have attested to. They're like, you're just so human, you know, like it's great. You don't want to go professional. And I'm like, yeah, because I don't care at all. There's nothing writing on it. So it's
like
just
the backhanded dance compliment.
I know. They're like, you got to stop making those faces, but it doesn't matter because you're not going to go professional. I'm like,
original. You're so original. I've never.
It's so fun. I do Zumba. I highly recommend Zumba for like every problem in your life.
Well, and then it's also, look, there's endorphins.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're getting your heart rate up.
Yes.
You're getting your frustrations out. You're sweating it out.
You feel like,
gotcha.
When you're dancing at like an exercise class, you feel like you're a pop star. You know, in your head, you are a pop star for a second. You know, you're just like,
years ago, me and my neighbor, we were living in Queens, and my neighbor upstairs was a good friend of mine. And we took these like really like a very serious series of dance classes that sort of culminated in a recital. 2 recitals, like adults. And one was swing dancing and the other was salsa. Wow. And I found that it was so amazing that with both swing dancing and salsa, you're as a man who's leading, you're sort of like, you're doing this thing with your arms, right? And you've got the one hand in front of you and the other one here. And it's literally like holding a guitar.
Amazing.
And I found that in taking those dance classes changed the relationship I had with my guitar and how I held it, how I played it, how I approached it. And it was like and it was an epiphany one day. And it was like, a couple of weeks before the recital. And I was like, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
It was like so amazing. And I think that there's something to that discipline. There's a lot of, take like Jacques Pepin, for example, who's a, world-class historic chef, best friends with Julia Child. He was a pioneer. And he's an artist, and he paints these beautiful pictures of like chickens, and stuff.
It
and it's like
shakes everything up to go to this other art form where there's nothing at stake. Yeah. It can be sort of like your workshop, you know. I come out of a dance class or something, and I'm like frustrated with a project or whatever, and then it's just like, let it all go, forget it, and then it's like something comes to your mind coming out of that. Yeah.
That's really cool. Great question, Ryan. Nice job.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have good questions.
Well, speaking of which, so we're gonna wind up with our easy uneasy segment here.
Okay.
And this has gone a couple of different ways, so I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Oof. Right.
So now Ryan goes first.
Okay. Is there a daily task that you abhor?
Anything that's like a long application or something that I have to fill in things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You don't like filling out forms.
No.
You don't have autofill ready to go on your browser?
No,
Online
not
forms?
like, I mean more involved ones.
More like,
Okay.
Yeah.
where you're maybe,
Or like
300
doing your
words,
taxes?
Blah, blah, blah. Anything like that.
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
that's a bummer.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the easy question.
That was the easy question. Wow, that kind of stressed me out.
Oh, no.
I'm thinking about my taxes now. No, go ahead.
Okay, here's the question that may make you uneasy.
Okay.
Should convicted felons be allowed to vote?
Huh. Convicted felons be allowed to vote? I would say no.
Okay. Cool. I just like I sort of agree with it in the sense that when you're living in what is, supposed to be an organized society, there are some things that you can do that pay a really sort of heavy price.
Mhm.
And felonies, when you really look at what's classified as a felony,
Yeah.
they're not good.
Yeah, you kind of give up a piece of your citizenship, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like you did. Now, I think the
And were those people going to vote anyhow? That's my other question.
I think that's a good B part to the question. That's
know,
the
is that-
follow up.
Make me look bad that I just asked that? I don't know.
No. But I think it's.
Think about this one.
I think it bears understanding and sort of like, how much is a felon
Yeah.
in their felonious behavior contributing to society. I think the flip side is that, hey, if someone makes a mistake and does a bad thing and pays a price for it, then they should be sort of like allowed back into
I agree with that.
the other folks of what the other folks are doing.
It's a tough question because it depends on there's what did they do? And
Yeah.
was the sentence long enough?
Right.
What if they were wrongly convicted? There's so many.
Exactly. And there's so much corruption.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I would say in the case of a wrongful conviction, I think I would say that they should be allowed to vote again. Because if you're sort of like nullifying the actual conviction from the get-go.
Well, is the question, should they ever be able to vote again even after they do their time? Or is the question while they're imprisoned?
No, like what? Like
yeah.
once you're convicted,
Like
whether
forever?
you're in prison or you're out of prison. When you're out of prison, you're still a convicted felon.
Good point. Okay. My original answer was based on thinking while someone was incarcerated.
So, like, should people who are imprisoned be allowed to vote?
yeah.
I would say no. That would get really dicey.
Yeah.
I mean,
But right now, convicted felons are not allowed to vote.
Laura, I'm a convicted felon and I would like to be able to vote. I'm kidding. I'm not.
I don't have much power in this area.
I'm not.
Wait, you know what? You should save this for the. You said your father's a litigator, correct?
Yes, he passed away last year, but yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, he may have enjoyed that question.
Oh, he would be arguing with you right now. Yeah.
Well, that's what litigators do, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Um,
When I was a little
Awesome.
kid, I called him a hard-nosed alligator because it made sense to me when I was little. Anyhow,
Nice.
okay.
that's fantastic, and I think hard-nosed alligator. I like that.
Yeah.
But hey, Laura, we covered a lot of ground today. I was afraid we weren't going to get through it all. I think we covered so much fantastic stuff, and I'm so happy for you that you've been able to not only accomplish so much, but to be able to experience so much success and recognition for the things that you've done. You've always been completely like sweet as pie. It was fantastic. Laura and I had one of our, I'm not going to say which year, but we had a high school reunion a couple of a couple of months ago.
5 years.
And we right, and we reconnected. And I'm so glad that we're still talking, and I track your stuff. I think I've contributed to one or more of your
you
projects.
have. Thank you very much. Yeah.
And just a humble brag there, just because I know Ryan has not. So way to go, Ryan.
Not yet.
I do things.
And we're here on the Sunlight Moonlight podcast. Our guest has been Laura Sweeney, multi-talented writer, director, actress, the whole shebang. Ryan,
thanks so much for coming on, Laura. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been great to reconnect, Dom, and great to meet you, Ryan. And
you too.
I love what you're doing here. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming. You're welcome back anytime. And when you finish, I think it's negotiable.
Yeah.
And that will be
yeah.
Okay, a feature. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're gonna have a feature film from Laura Sweeney sometime in 2024, 2025. I don't want to lock you down.
It's 2025. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's gonna be awesome. And we're so happy to have you here, Brian. Any final thoughts here?
I want to have Laura back on for when Negotiable comes out. If you want to.
That would be great. I'd love to come back anytime.
No pressure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes, it's
well,
good.
Laura, thank you so much for your time, and we'll get after it soon. And good luck with 2024. I'm sure it's going to treat you very well.
You too. Great to see you guys. Take care.
Peace.
All right, bye.